Week 8 of the NFL season rolls along, and we're back with another week of NFL Pick'em for me, Redhead Takes. I know the past couple weeks have not been great, but hopefully this week will be better, because last week was again a woeful edition trying to pick. My God, picking in the NFL is hard and frustrating. I know I'm probably overthinking it. Maybe this week I won't overthink things and I'll get a couple more right. But if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share, comment, all of that. But let's get into the picks right away. In the first game of the week, we have Tampa Bay versus Buffalo. Tampa Bay losing at the last second is really frustrating. They had that game, but again, there were like 5 turnovers in that whole game against the Falcons, and none went in score of points, which is weird. Usually you get at least some kind of points off turnover. And the Buffalo Bills just fell apart against the Patriots. And I don't know how else to explain it. That was just a debacle in every sense. They're so injured. Their defense is just so different with so many injuries. Even if they'd had just a couple more pieces, probably would have been able to pull that out. It's very frustrating. And their inability to get going in the first half is just mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense. What happened to that offense when they played against Miami? Where is that? Sure, it has a lot to do with the defense causing turnovers and getting good spots, but it's just not there. Hopefully, the Buffalo Bills will get back at it this week. Tampa Bay should put up a good fight, even though Baker Mayfield likes to throw picks left and right. Still have good options at receiver, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. So it should be a pretty good Thursday night game, all things considered. We haven't had a lot of those this year, but in the end, I think Tampa Bay wins 30-21. Should be a great game, probably one of the better Thursday games this year. And next we have the Jets versus the Giants. And the Jets are coming off a bye. Giants won last week against the Redskins because the Redskins forgot how many timeouts they had, and as a result, incurred a runoff, which ended any chance they had to come back. But then again, the Redskins had a bunch of turnovers, but the Giants are still a mystery. They're still not a very good team. There's doubts about whether Saquon Barkley plays this week, and that would definitely go a long way into deciding who wins this game. The Jets, like I said, are coming off a bye. They're 3-3. They beat the Eagles before the bye week, so maybe that inspires some confidence. Maybe, just maybe, Aaron Rodgers comes back for the end of the year. I still have my doubts, but that would be a big boon for them. Again, they still can't block, but they've been looking better. Brees Hall has definitely helped a lot. As long as he keeps going, the Jets have a chance to stay in games, and that defense is still great. They should have most of their defensive options back this week, from what I can tell. And the Jets should win this game. Keyword should, because I just don't believe in the Giants. Even though, again, you pick against the Giants last week and they win, picking the Redskins is, or picking the Commies is a hard thing to pick this year, like it always. But I think the Jets win 21-14, relatively low scoring game in the long term of things. But I think the defense and some Brees Hall should go a long way into deciding this game. And next we have Jacksonville and Pittsburgh. Jacksonville, as we've seen in the past couple of years, have had the number over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Pittsburgh Steelers had a great win last week against the Rams. George Pickens got going. Deontay Johnson's back, which helped. Najee Harris didn't have a terrible game. Pickett didn't make a lot of mistakes, and they were just efficient. And their defense looked pretty good. Had a couple of turnovers, which is nice. And then we have the Jags, who, despite a gimpy knee, Trevor Lawrence was able to run all over the Saints, which is a mystery. And the Saints, I guess, they're just not very good this year. But Jacksonville, their offense clearly runs through Travis Etienne. As long as he's going, their offense is going to be potent and efficient. Still would like to see more passing touchdowns from Trevor Lawrence. Just haven't seen it this year. Actually may have to do with the injury, but he had that great shot to Christian Kirk to win the game. And he's probably going to keep healing and getting better. But I would like to see more passing touchdowns in that department. He's just, in terms of fantasy numbers, he hasn't been great. He's a solid mid-level quarterback, but something that you can't feel all too comfortable with on a week-to-week basis at the quarterback position. But I think he'll have a good week this week. Like I said, Jacksonville seems to have Pittsburgh's number. Again, Kenny Pickett is going to have to avoid mistakes this week if they want to win, just because Jacksonville has been so potent in that area all year. And when they're causing turnovers, they're doing well. Another thing for Jacksonville, where did Calvin Ridley go? He had one catch for 5 yards last week. I don't know, or he had such high hopes for him this year. Maybe he'll get it back together this week, but who knows? I think in the end, Jacksonville wins 20-24, a good close game. Next we have Philadelphia and the Redskins, or Philly and the Commies, I should say. Can we just go back to the name of the Redskins, please? We all know you want to change it back. Just change it back. Owner Daniel Snyder can no longer hurt you. Just go back to the name. I know you changed it just to spite him, but anyway, the Eagles won last week against the Dolphins. They looked really good, and I switched my pick on that at the last second just because Philly's defense is great. They had a great offensive efficiency. A.J. Brown has been on fire. So is Dallas Goedert. It's good to see him getting involved. And the Redskins, like I said, lost the heartbreaker against the Giants because they forgot how many timeouts they had left and they had an injury. The last time these teams played, it was a very good game, a very surprising game. But I think the Eagles win. I think they just have a little bit more firepower. The defense is really good. But then again, the Commies have surprised this year. I mean, they nearly pulled out the upset win against Eagles a couple weeks ago. So maybe they can pull it off this week. It is in DC, so maybe that goes a little ways. It's just Sam Howell's been up and down all year. You don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get good Sam Howell that's efficient and avoids the turnovers? Or are you going to have one who can throw the ball, really is throwing incompletions all over the board and throwing interceptions. Brian Robinson will definitely go a long way into helping. They're going to have to get that run game going against Philadelphia, especially now since they acquired Kevin Byard. What? Their defense got even better. Ridiculous. But I think Philly wins a close one, 24-21, just because it's a rivalry game. Rarely does this game turn into a blowout. For the last couple years, I've noticed this game just doesn't end in a blowout between these two teams. They're always competitive. But in the end, Philly wins 24-21. Still think the Commies could pull out a win, but we shall see. Next we have the Rams and the Dallas Cowboys. Should be a really good game. Rams have been great in offense this year. Puka Nacua continues to soar and go higher and higher. Who knows if he'll actually, probably won't break Michael Thomas's record, but boy, he's making an argument that he could, because he got all the balls last week. Cooper Kupp didn't have that great a game. Puka Nacua was on fire last week. The combination between Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson was interesting. Now that Kerwin Williams is on the IR for the next couple weeks. Dallas coming off a bye. They had that win against LA where they didn't look good at times, but they played well enough to the win. Dak Prescott had a great game all the way through for the most part. Didn't have any turnovers or anything. So it should be a competitive game. These two teams you should play each other well. Hopefully Tony Pollard can get going, because it's really interesting. He's probably not going to be a Cowboy next year, but hopefully he gets into that touchdown game. He's just due for a touchdown here in the next couple weeks, but he's starting to use him more in a receiving role, which he's very good at, and that's really good to see, especially if you have him in fantasy. He's a great receiving back, one of the better ones in the league. The Rams defense is decent. We all know what Dallas defense can do as well. Should be a competitive game. I think in the end Dallas wins 35-27, but it's going to be a competitive game nonetheless. And next we have Atlanta and Tennessee. Atlanta, again, getting the game win last week on a game-winning field goal by Young Koo. And Tennessee coming off a bye. They didn't look very good in London the week before. Kind of got beat around by Baltimore Ravens. But as long as Derrick Henry's in there, they have a chance to win. Hopefully Ryan Tannehill can play this week, because we've seen Malik Wilson. He's just, oh boy. People had such high hopes for him going into the league, and he's just doesn't seem to be getting it, or looking like a deer in the headlights most times in the pocket, and he just gets sacked all the time. But it should be a competitive game. Atlanta didn't cause a couple turnovers last week, but didn't get any points. Their defense is sneaky good, like it usually is. But Desmond Ridder had three fumbles last week. And that one where he was running for a touchdown and got knocked out right before is inexcusable. He just is awful. Desmond Ridder is an awful quarterback. The Falcons are going to need to find someone new next year because he's just not it. He makes some plays every now and then, but the turnovers are killing him. Just like Jordan Love. The turnovers are killing any progression he may have on a week-to-week basis. And also with Atlanta, what happened to Bijan Robinson? What happened to him? You Falcons are not doing him any favors. They were making him look really soft. He needs to have a bounce back game this week, otherwise that perception is going to keep going further. I mean, it's a mystery what they're doing with him. But Tennessee, like I said, as long as Derrick Henry is going, they should be good. They traded Kevin Byard, like I said, so that's a loss in the defense. I think Tennessee wins 24-17. It's just so hard to pick Atlanta. Atlanta is another one of those teams that I don't like to pick because every time I pick them, they lose the teams. But Tennessee wins 24-17. Competitive game all the way through. Can't wait to watch it. Next, we have Miami and New England. New England with the surprising win last week. Miami with the loss to Philadelphia. Hopefully, that offense should get rip-roaring, ready to go again this week against the Patriots, who did have a pretty good defensive performance this week, so maybe we can temper our expectations a little bit. I just don't think the Miami offense is going to be kept down multiple weeks in a row. They played pretty well last week, but they did not well enough to get the win. They should be able to go off this week again. Miami usually beats New England. New England's often looked pretty good last week. Hey, it's nice when you give J. Stevenson the ball. When you give him the ball more, good things happen. Continue to do that, and you may see more wins in the scoreboard. Now, of course, McCorkle is still not the greatest quarterback, but he did look pretty good against the injury-ravaged Buffalo defense. These games are usually competitive. I think Miami wins by a little more this time. I think they're going to play pretty well against New England. It is in Miami, so there's always that. I think Miami wins in the end 35-20. Should be close for most of the game, though. Next, we have Indianapolis and the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, again, lose at the end because their red zone offense is just dreadful. The Colts lose under sinister circumstances. Apparently, there was a bunch of missed ref calls in that game. I didn't watch the highlights, but that's one of those games where the refs really played ref foul and could have affected the outcome. I don't know who to pick. It's a week-to-week basis of what you're going to get from Gardner Minshew. One week he's really good, then the next week he's bad. New Orleans defense is sneaky good at times, but they do give up a lot of yards, so that's a bummer. Hopefully Chris Olave can get going again this week. It's been a mystery why he hasn't been able to do much since the first couple weeks. Their offense is just really, it seems to be geared more towards Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has been great as a receiving option. He's been pretty efficient on the ground. Continue to see him do so. So if you have him in fantasy, you made a really good pick, and he's going to continue doing well. The Colts don't have the greatest defense in the world, but they do cause turnovers. Jonathan Taylor had a great game last week. Hopefully we see more progress like that in the future. Should be a good game overall. I think the Saints win 20-24, but again, picking either of these teams is a gamble. You never know what you're going to get. But I think the Saints can bounce back and win again and get back to 500. Next, we have Houston and Carolina, battle of the number 1 and number 2 picks. Who wins? Carolina is coming off a bye, as well as Houston, so both of these teams should be well rested. Hopefully Houston gets Tank Dell back. We know what Nico Collins has been able to do this year. Looking for a little bit more from Dameon Pierce. I know that offensive line isn't great, but he should be doing better than what he has been. He's improved a little bit over the past couple weeks. Hopefully It's not a changing of the guard and going more towards Devin Singletary because I think in the long run Dameon Pierce is the better back, but they're going to go with the hot hand, it seems. Carolina, Bryce Young has had his moments this year. It's just the team is really bad and really young, and they're going to lose their first round pick next year or this coming year, so that's a bummer for them. But Bryce Young does have a bright future. Who knows if Frank Reich has a bright future? They might have a new coach next year. Who knows? But I think Houston has more than enough firepower to win. Should be a close game. Who wins this game? The number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick? I think in this matchup, the number 2 overall pick gets the advantage, but it should be a good game. Next, you have Cleveland and Seattle. A sneaky good game this week. Cleveland coming off that amazing win at the end last week against Indy. Seattle winning against Cardinals. Seattle's offense has been pretty good. Running through Kenny Walker is a good thing. He's a great running back. Good receiving option. Good on the ground. Good blocker as well, except when he tries to go for a knees, which he has a couple times this year. And Cleveland, their defense is clearly one of the best in the league. Myles Garrett is an amazing pass rusher, run stopper. He can do it all. Who knows what's going to happen with the Watson? PJ Walker has been middle of the road. He just hasn't made a lot of mistakes. Cleveland, who knows what's going to happen with Jerome Ford this week? He had an injury last week. It seems like he's doubtful for this week, so it may be in the hands of Kareem Hunt to carry the ball. It should be a very competitive game. Should be a relatively low-scoring game. I think Seattle has just a little bit more firepower. It is in Seattle. You know how the 12th man is, very fickle, and you never know how supportive they are of their team. But, well, actually, we know they're supportive of their team. They're just kind of fair weather fans, to be honest, in my opinion. But Seattle wins 17-14. But it should be a very good game, one of the best of the weekend. Next, you have Cincinnati and San Francisco, another one of the best games of the weekend. Cincinnati coming off a bye, San Francisco with their second straight loss. I think we're starting to see what happens when Deebo Samuel is not in the lineup. It's definitely not as good for the 49ers when he's out. They definitely lose a lot of versatility in that factor and weren't able to pull out the win against the Vikings. Cincinnati coming off a bye. They are slowly getting things better on offense. Joe Burrow is starting to look more like himself. The offensive line has had their moments where they're starting to improve. Their defense is sneaky good at times. They're able to pass rush like the best of them. We know what the 49ers defense can do. It's just what can their offense do? We know their offense is good. We know McCaffrey is scoring a lot. Brock Purdy has been getting touchdowns, but Brock Purdy didn't have the greatest game last week. He was relatively efficient, but just not the big gamer that we've seen all year, and probably has a lot to do with Deebo Samuel being on. Maybe Samuel will be back this week. That would really help. He really brings a lot of versatility to their offense, and you've seen it on the field. When he's not out there, they have a lot less versatility. Ayuk is a good receiver, but you're just missing something when you can have a run or a wide receiver like Samuel come out of the backfield, jet sweep, and shit like that. But it should be a relatively good game. Actually, it should be a very good game. I think Cincinnati pulls it out 20-27, but I can very well see a scenario where San Francisco wins. But a third loss in a row for San Francisco. Maybe it's time to sound the alarms, but who knows? Next, we have Kansas City, Denver. Denver won last week against the Packers. Disappointing, I know. They're still not a very good team, but apparently the Packers aren't a good team either. And KC with a great offensive performance against the Chargers. They always beat up on the Chargers. Chargers are definitely the little brother in this scenario. Patrick Mahomes has his first really great game of the year. Was very efficient, and he had over 400 yards. Kelsey had another monster game. Travis Kelsey is so frustrating as well. I hate playing against him because he always does good against me in fantasy every time. But not enough about me. Kansas City should win this game. Denver did play them really well in that Thursday night game. could have pulled out the win, didn't, but coming off the win against the Packers, maybe they have a little more offense. Their offense is a little more ready to go or looks a little better. Javonte Williams is heading in the right direction, which is good to see. It's good to see he's slowly getting in his form that he had before the injuries. But I think Kansas City is going to have way too much firepower in this instance. They're going to win 35-17. Maybe Denver hangs in there early, but eventually Kansas City will pull away, and Kansas City wins. Next, we have Baltimore and Arizona. Baltimore off the resounding win against Detroit last week. Arizona with the loss against Seattle. Baltimore's offense is looking very potent, very efficient. Zay Flowers is an underrated wide receiver. He's great. Mark Andrews, great. Gus the Bus Edwards has been getting better and better. Their offensive line is great. Their defense is opportunistic, and they're able to rush like the best of them, and they can get in there and force turnovers left and right, get sacks. Josh Dobbs is probably in for a hard game this week, but then again, we've seen what Arizona can do. They can surprise teams at times. They're clearly not the worst team in the league. They just haven't won a lot, but they're usually in games for the most part. They just don't have enough to pull out a win. Sorry, Cowboys, but it should be a relatively close game for most of the game, but Baltimore's overwhelming firepower will win the day, and they'll win 30-17. Next, we have Chicago and LA on a Sunday night game. What a terrible Sunday night game. Terrible. Just awful. Tyson Bagent with the win last week. Deontay Foreman was a beast last week. Maybe he goes off again this week. LA with the loss, like I said, against the Chargers, did not look very good. They were in it, but they really weren't. Justin Herbert still not breaking out like he should for somebody being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Who knows what's happening with Austin Eckler? Maybe some concerns going forward. Joshua Kelly had a great game, and Eckler just didn't look great. Sure, it's his first game back from injury, but maybe some concerns in the future. And maybe LA was right to only give him another. Who knows what's going to happen with him? It's a sad state of running backs in the NFL at this point, but I think LA has enough to win. It should be a relatively close game. Actually, a very close game in my eye. I think I'm going to pick LA to win 24-21. Whoever has the least amount of turnovers win this game. Next, we have Las Vegas and Detroit for the last game of the week, Monday night. Detroit needs to bounce back in a big way because there's a lot of doubters now amongst the Lions. Like, there always has been. There always has been the doubters. I'm one of them. I need them to avoid having a multiple game losing streak this year if I really want to believe that they're back and ready to compete in the league. They just were outrushed, outpassed, and outsacked in every category imaginable last week. Gaff didn't have a lot of interceptions. He just didn't have time to throw. Had no time to throw. And they're going to need to get back. Luckily, they're playing the Raiders, so their pass rush is much less ferocious, but LV still has Devontae Adams, and we know what Devontae Adams has done against the Lions time and time again. So maybe Devontae comes out this week. For the Raiders, they need to have Aiden O'Connell in there. Brian Hoyer just doesn't cut it anymore. Aiden O'Connell is a good young quarterback. He is still learning. He's still a rookie, of course. Of course, they want Jimmy G in there. Who knows if he's going to play this week? Jimmy G being in there would go a long way, especially for Devontae Adams. Should be a good game for the most part early, but I think Detroit has the horses to pull forward and get everybody back into believing them again. Should be a good game overall, though. Detroit wins 28-14. And there you go. There are my picks for this week in the NFL. It should be a great week. Hopefully the picks go better for me this week. Not too many buys this week, but should be a great set nonetheless. Of course, my video about the Packers will be coming out shortly in the next couple of days. Look forward to that. I always break them apart just so I can go more in depth on the Packers because that's my team. But have a great day, and as always, God bless. Go Packers.